Okay, this is a big deal. Today you're going to use your bass notes and treble notes, your knowledge of spelling triads and seventh chords, and chord functions. Is this a 1 chord? Is this a 5 chord? And how does that fit into a scale or key? To analyze, actually it's going to be more than one day thing, but it's going to be a lot of work today, to analyze a piece of very famous music from the Baroque period. This is Bach's Prelude and Fugue in C. It's the prelude before a longer, more involved piece. It's well beloved, and if you're doing this right, you will have already watched a YouTube video with this recording. And if you haven't, you should go and do that, because it's very important for you to get an idea of how this sounds. Whenever we do analysis, which means figuring out what's going on in here for chords or melody or key or something like that, you need to have it in your ears, okay? So this presumes that you listened to this a bunch of times already, okay? It's a beautiful piece, and we're gonna do some work in here. Before we start that, I just want to remind you of a couple things. That if you see a dominant 7 chord, that equals a 5 chord. And if you see a diminished 7 chord, that usually equals a 7 chord. And both of these guys' job is to point us to number 1, okay? So if you see GBDF, that's a G major triad with a 7th, that's a whole step down, G to F, that's a dominant 7 chord. Remember that a major triad and a minor 7th is a dominant 7th chord. And you just would, like if you had G, B, D, F, major triad, F is a minor 7 from here to there, you'd write it G7. That's the default. If you see a letter and 7, that means dominant, okay? Diminished 7 is note number 7 in the scale and has most of these notes in here, and they push us to 1, okay? It's a very important set of chords to identify because they tell you by definition what key or scale you're in, which helps us understand the piece of music. All right, let's just get to it. So you have learned to read some bass notes, which is good because the left hand of the piano is the bass notes, and we hopefully can read all these treble notes here. Now I'm gonna help you sort this out by telling you that every measure of music here is 1 chord, okay? All the notes in here make a chord. And this half of the measure, the first 2 beats, is identical to this half of the measure. So what that means is we can ignore that because it's just a duplication of this. And that'll be true for this measure and this measure, it's the same, and this measure and this measure. So really, all you're looking at is the first 2 beats worth of notes in every measure, and they spell a chord. Now, there is an exception to that rule, which comes way over here. I'm gonna point it out right now, just so we're there. We're on page 2, measure 23, which is the last measure right here. This is the one measure that has a pattern that has a non-chord tone in it, meaning it's not part of the chord. And that's that C right there, and that C right there, and then of course the repeat. Meaning when we get there, we're gonna ignore that note. Lots of music has lots of notes in it that are not part of the chord. This one almost is exclusively chord tones only, which makes it really good and fun to start analyzing. At the very end of the piece here, down at the bottom, by the way, this last 2 lines here are the fugue, and we're not looking at that, okay? We're just looking at the prelude, right? So, but when we get down to here, what you will find is that it's possible that this lowest note right here, and I'll explain the function of it at a later time, is not part of the chord. And so maybe right here, we don't want to include this note either. Okay, other than that, I think we're good, probably. Maybe not here as well. We'll get there in a minute. But let's start talking about how we look at these chords. All right, so to begin with, we're just going to identify what the chords are. There are no sharps or flats in the key signature, so we do not have to do anything here with sharps or flats unless they show up in the music, which will happen a little bit later on. So we just identify the notes. If you're good at your bass clef, you will know that this is a C, right? And I'm going to write these in right now so you can see that. And if we go up 2 steps to there, that's an E. And if you're going like, whoa, I'm not that fast, especially on ledger lines, you'll get better by doing this. It just takes practice, okay? And then this here is a G, and that's a C, and that's an E, and this is the same thing over again, okay? So we have a C, an E, a G, a C, and an E, and then repeats of those. It's either a C chord, an E chord, or a G chord. C, E, G, that looks right. If it was an E chord, it would be E, G, B. That's not right. If it was a G chord, it would be G, B, D, or G, B, D, and that's not right. This is a C chord. I'm just going to put this right down here, and I'm going to put M-A-J for major, because C major triad. That's not to be unexpected, because this is prelude and fugue in C, meaning the key of C major, and we know that the beginnings and ends of pieces and important arrival points and places are usually framed up with the 1 chord, in this case C, or the 5 chord. In that case, it would be a G chord, okay? Let's keep moving on here. So in this next measure, again, we don't have to worry about that because it's just a repeat of this. Let's take a look at all our notes here. I have a C right here, okay? This is a D right there. It's already different, right? Here's an A, here's a D, and here's an F, okay? This is where it gets complicated because there are 4 notes in this, right? This could be a C chord, this could be a D chord, this could be an F chord, and this could be an A chord. And because it's got 4 notes, it's going to have a 7th on top. Okay, so hold on. If it was a C chord with a 7th, it would be C, E, G, B. That does not match at all. It's not a C chord. Let's just go up. If it was a D chord, it would be D, F, A, and a 7th would be a C. That matches D, F, A, and a C. I think this is a D chord, okay? And it's got some kind of 7th on there. But let's just check out a couple other things here. If this was an F chord, it would be F, A, C, and the 7th would be E. And here's one that will trick people, because this has an F, an A, and a C, but it does not have the E, right? See how that works? So a D chord would have D, F, A, and the 7th would be C, a step down from D. And an F chord would be F, A, C, and the other note would be an E, step down from there. And it doesn't work, so you have to be careful and make sure that you've got all the notes accounted for. All right, so it's a D chord with a 7th, but what kind? Well, let's check this out. No sharps and flats. D, F, A is a minor triad. Okay, now if you remember all the work we did on 7th chords, there's major 7th chords, minor 7th chords, dominant 7th chords, half diminished 7th chords, and diminished 7th chords. Only one of them has a minor triad in it, and that is the minor 7th chord, which is a minor triad and a minor 7th. DFA is a minor triad, and the C is a whole step down, so that's a minor 7th. So this is a D minor 7th chord. Okay? All right, let's keep moving on. That means we're at this chord right here. Our notes have changed again. This is a B, that's still a D. This is a G, that's a D, and that's an F. Do you see we have 4 different pitches here? We have B, D, G, D is a repeat, and F. This is a 4-note chord, which means it's going to be a 7th chord. It's not just going to be root 3rd, 5th, it's going to have a 7th as well. So let's check it out. Is it a B chord? B, D, F with an A. B, D, F, A. Well, you got your B, D, F, but not an A, it's a G. So that doesn't work, because if we were a B with a 7th, it'd be B, D, F, A. Is it a D chord? D, F, A, C? Nope. Is it a G chord? G, B, D, F. That is correct. If you see, we have a G and a B and a D, right? And then we have our F right there. So this is a G, and it's got a 7 on it. But what kind? Well, this is a major triad right there. And there's only two kinds of chords that have major triads in them with 7ths. One is the major 7th chord, and one is the dominant 7th chord. And we know that the dominant 7th chord has a whole step down from the root, and the major 7th chord has a half step down from the root. F is a whole step down from G. So we have a major triad and a minor 7th. So this is a dominant 7th chord, and the symbol for that is just the letter and the 7th. So we're done right there. G, B, D, F. That's the dominant 7th chord. Dominant 7th chords are 5 chords, and that makes sense because we're in the key of C, and that's 1, and G is 5, and it's the dominant form, which is the 5 form. Oh, what fun. Is your brain hurting yet? It gets easier. Okay, let's try to keep going here. Let's go back. Now, there are some ways to cheat here. 5 chords like to go to 1 chords most of the time, right? And if I know that G dominant 7 is a 5 chord, because dominants are 5 chords, then it likely wants to go to its 1, which is C. So I'm going to bet that this is a C chord here. And I'll be right about 70% of the time. So let's check it out. C, E, G, C, E. In fact, it looks identical to right there. It's another C chord. I'm going to put C major. Just a triad, no 7th, right? Let's check this guy out right here. It's got a C and an E. I'm stopping writing these things. Again, you don't need to look at the second half right here. It's the same because I'm starting to get good repetition. You might want to write a C and an E there just to get it out of your head so you can think about other things. Okay, so is it another C chord? It might be, but let's check it out. This is an A. It is not a C chord because C chords do not have A's in them, except for C6s, but Bach isn't going to do that to us. And there's an E, and there's an A. So is it a C chord, C, E, G? No. Is it an E chord, E, G, B? No. Is it an A chord, A, C, E? Yes. No sharps and flats. So A, C, E is A minor, right? Now, we could pause here for a moment and just think about this. We're in the key of C, meaning we're using a C scale. And C is the 1 chord, and D would be my 2, G would be my 5, back to 1, and then A would be 6. And you can think about it like that. You could transpose it to other keys. But you can start to see that Bach is using formulas that he's aware of and work well in the C major key, 1, 2, 5, 1. And then he ventures off into 6, and there's a reason for that. We won't get too far into it, though, today. Let's check out our next chord. Do you need a break? I can do this all day. If you're going like, wow, my brain hurts, then take a break, pause the video, go get a drink of water, come back. But let's keep pressing on, though, in real time. So this is a C. That's a D, right? This is a F sharp. Yikes. This is an A, and that's a D. Now, we haven't talked about this too explicitly, although we've mentioned it sometimes. If you put an F sharp in the measure right here, right, it carries through for every other F sharp in the measure until you get to the bar line, unless you tell us differently. We just don't write it in because it's cumbersome. So this is an F sharp, that's also an F sharp, that's an F sharp, and that's an F sharp. The whole thing is full of F sharps. We're not going to look at this because it's a repeat. Let's check this out. Is it a C chord, C, E, G, B? No, it's a 4-note chord, right? Is it a D chord? D, F, A, C. It is. I think it is. We have a D, F, sharp, A, and C. That works. Let's just check out the rest for a minute. If it was an A chord, it would be an A, C, E, G. That doesn't work. And if it was an F chord, it would be F, A, C. That looks good. But then it'd be an E, not a D, right? Because E is a step down from F or F sharp. So this is a D chord. It's some kind of D with some kind of 7, right? Let's check it out now. D F sharp A is D major. C is a minor 7 or a whole step down from the root. Major triad, minor 7th is a dominant 7 chord. You just write the 7 and you leave it as is. Remember that dominant 7 equals 5. See this F sharp right here? It's telling us, at least temporarily, we're not in the key of C. And music tends to do this in the classical and Baroque era and in movie soundtracks and things like that, where they're writing more in this tradition, where they'll start in one key, but then they go to other keys temporarily and adventure around and then come back. It's kind of like Lord of the Rings. The hobbits don't stay in the Shire the entire time. They go adventuring to foreign lands and then they come back. We have left the Shire. Key of C, no sharps, no flats, plus 1 sharp F sharp is actually a G scale. And if I were in the key of G using a G scale, then 5 would be D. This is my 5 chord in the key of G. In our ears, when you listen to that, you'll go like, hey, we're moving away from home. We're making a new home somewhere else. So temporarily, this signals in our ear, this D dominant 7, that we're leaving C behind for a while and going on. Now, remember how I said when I find a 5 chord, it almost always goes to its 1 chord? I still stand by that. So if D is now my dominant 7 chord instead of a minor 7 chord here, and it's my 5 chord, G is my 1 chord, right? GBD, root 3rd 5th. And so I would expect to find a G chord here. Let's check that out. B, D. Oh, you got to get good at your bass notes. Otherwise, this is excruciating, right? And then G and D and G. Well, is it a G chord? G, B, D. It is. So G major. More than that, though, you can see that this makes a 5-1 relationship and that makes a 5-1 relationship. And Bach is getting out and doing stuff. All right, let's keep going. This could take forever or a couple days. I'm going to help you with some of it, and then I'm going to leave you to do the rest of the page today, and then tomorrow we'll visit the second page, okay? So here is my, I have a B, I have a C, I have an E, I have a G, and I have a C again, and it repeats. And again, that's just a repetition of what happened there. So is this a B chord? BDFA? No. 4 notes, so it's got to have a 7th on it. Is it a C chord? C, E, G, B. That works, right? I think this is some kind of 7 chord with a C. But let's just check out the other notes. Is it an E chord? E, G, B. That's close. Got an E, a G, and a B. But if it was a 7 chord, you know, an E chord with a 7, that'd be E, G, B, D, not C. And it's not a G chord, G, B, D, F, it's not even close. So this is some kind of C chord right here. Let's check that out for a minute. C, E, G is a major triad. That means this is a dominant chord, right? Or a major 7th chord, because only those 2 chords have major triads in them. If we put the B on here, though, do you see how it's just a half step down? Do you remember your keyboard? B is a half step down. That's called a major 7th. So a major triad and a major 7th is not a dominant chord, but a C major 7th chord, right? Let's check out this one right here. A, C, E, G, C. A, C, E, G, C. A, C, E, G, C. Again, you can ignore that. Well, is it an A chord? A, C, E, G. That works. Is it any other chord? C, E, G, B? Nope, because it would have been an A. Sorry, a B instead of an A. Is it a G chord? G, B, D, F? No. Is it an E chord? E, G, B, D? No. So it's an A chord right here, and it's got some kind of 7th on it. Let's check this out. A, C, E is a minor triad, and G is a minor 7th, and we know that the only chords with minor triads in them that we use with the 7th are minor 7th chords. This is a minor triad and a minor 7th, a minor 7 chord, okay? All right, let's finish to here, And then you can do this. Some of them are truly horrible, difficult chords, but you can figure them out. Actually, I'll tell you what. Let's do that one right there. And maybe that one right there. And then I'll let you do the rest of the page. All right, you can figure these guys out because we've covered chords like this already. This is a little more difficult. This is like when we leave the Shire, key of C, and we're out in the world and it's fine. But when we get to here, we get some ugly chords, it's like we've gone into Mordor, okay? So let's check this out. This is a sharp pencil, I think, is what we want. A G, this is a B flat, this is an E, that's another G, and that's a C sharp. And these are repeated. Remember, this sharp is going to go for that one and that one and that one. And this is all a repeat. This B flat's going to go there. So, is it a G chord? G, B, D, F. Nope, it doesn't match. It's got a G and a B, but nothing else. Is it a B chord? B, D, F, A. Not even close. Is it a, what's up from there, G, B? Is it a C chord? That would be the next one. C, E, G, B. It is a C chord of some kind. It's actually a C sharp chord, right? So this is C sharp, some kind of 7, because there's 4 notes in there. Oh dear. Let's try this the long way for a minute, okay? If I go, I'm going to write this right here. If I go C, E, G, B, I know that this is a major 7th chord. I just saw it right here. It's got a major triad and a major 7th, right? So if I sharp everything, C sharp, E sharp, G sharp, B sharp, right? Then I still have a major triad and a major 7th because I just sharped everything and went up. It's like if I took my C major 7 chord right there, like that, and then I moved everything up, right? So C major 7, C sharp major 7. Okay, I sharped everything, stays the same. Now let's compare to what we have. We have in this though, a C sharp, an E, a G, and a B flat. It's very different. Let's just take a look and see what our triad is. If I had a major triad, C sharp, E sharp, G sharp, and I took away a sharp here, that would be lowering the 5th. And if I took away a sharp here, that would be lowering the 3rd. So I have a major triad and I lower the 3rd, it becomes minor. That'd be C sharp, E, G sharp. And if I had that chord and took away the sharp on the 5th, it would become diminished. We have a diminished triad right here, okay? Are we even on the page? Kind of not. Let me bring that up there. Sorry about that. Can't see the camera while I'm doing this. Let's try again. I go C sharp, E sharp, G sharp, B sharp to get everything to the C sharp level. This is a major triad. What I really have in the music is C sharp, E, G, and B flat. So I'm just going to see what's changed. If I take a C sharp, E sharp, G sharp, which is major, and take away that, then it becomes minor. And if I take away that, then it becomes diminished. So I have a C sharp diminished triad. There are only 2 kinds of chords that have diminished triads in them. One is the half diminished 7, and one is the fully diminished 7. Ay, 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 ay. Well, so this is either a C sharp diminished 7 or a C sharp half diminished 7. The difference is that in a half diminished 7, you just go down 1 whole step, or a minor 7th, to get to the 7th. But you go down 3 half steps to get to the diminished 7. So let's check this out for a minute here. I have myself a C sharp right there, okay? And I want to see how far down, and I've got a E and a G, and this is a C diminished triad, okay? But I want to see how far down it is to a B flat, okay? So if I go from here, that's 1, 2, 3, 1.5 steps. I have a diminished triad and 3 half steps down, which is a diminished seventh, right? A diminished triad plus a diminished seventh is a diminished seventh chord, fully diminished seventh. So that's what I have here. You thought the day would never come where you'd be responsible for these things, but you are, right? Okay. C sharp diminished seventh. All right. I'll give you a hint. This is another diminished seventh chord here, but you'll have to figure out what kind. Okay, the other ones are all doable. We did a lot together. You should be tired, at least if you've been working here, right? It would be very good for you as you do this to have a keyboard nearby so you can check out how far it is to the seventh. But you need to remind yourself what triads go into what kind of seventh chords and what kind of sevenths are in those chords as well. All right, homework for today is to finish this here, okay? I'll put up an answer key. If you did really, really well at spelling seventh chords and you find this difficult, that's completely normal. You are now not doing theoretical letters. You're dealing with notation. You're also dealing with bass clef notes, and they're being thrown at you in some random way instead of a well-organized developmental skill building way. But that's real sort of analysis. I can tell you that it gets easier as you practice. It also gets easier when you start to see patterns. Like, for instance here, I knew that there was a C chord coming up right here because I saw my 5 chord right there. I knew that there was a G chord coming up because I saw my 5 chord coming up here. I know that after this, there's a D minor chord coming up here because, a D chord coming up here because C sharp is, oh, it's erased. Because diminished 7 chords are 7s, and they like to take you, just like the 5 does, to the 1. And so if C sharp is my 7, D will be my 1. So there's sort of patterns that you learn to find.